Oliver Ross, and welcome to a special edition of the Ross Perspective. Tonight is the night of Darius Tidman's execution by lethal injection for the grisly murder of 20 innocents.
You owe me. They wanted Guy Oakley, but I insisted.
Nobody's gonna switch the channel. I promise you fireworks. You describe your crimes as some sort of a beautiful journey.
If there wasn't something beautiful at the heart of it, I wouldn't have done any of it.
It's suffering.
Oliver, get your head in the game. Pull it together. Get into his head.
Darius, tell me about the night that you reached your limit and killed.
I got on top of him. I looked directly into his eyes. And he finally saw my true face. A demon.
You enjoyed it, didn't you?
Yes.
You're evil.
What's going on?
Somebody's gonna die tonight. And I can't wait.
Hello, welcome to episode 5 of The Horror with Patrizia Dahlia Thompson. I am joined today by the legendary Fred Vogel, director of The Final Interview, Maskhead, Celeturcia, Murder Collection, and perhaps most infamously of all, we're going to get to the long shadow of its legacy, the August Underground trilogy. How are you doing today, Fred? It's a delight to have you on.
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for having me.
No worries. So first off, I kind of want to talk about your latest film, which is The Final Interview. It's from 2018. And this movie kind of came about because you had another project that was in development, wasn't it? And then that fell apart. So do you want to kind of like talk us through The Final Interview? Because I know that it's very important to you. I've listened to other interviews, and it's been very important to you to talk about your most recent work when you appear on podcasts like this.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're only as good as your last work, right? So I'm very proud. I'm very proud of The Final Interview. It was one of those movies where I had a nice little hiatus from Celeturcica, which was shot in 2010, which was the last toe tag movie. So from 2010 to up until 2016, I've been trying to get something made. And I was working on a project that was a lot bigger, a lot more money. And, anytime you deal in that world, you have ups and downs because you're trying to raise a lot of money. And it got to the point to where I had a producer and, people were believing in me and wanting to invest in the movie. And then, things happened and the money fell through. And I was just, I was so ready to go to do something that I didn't want to stop my flow of creativity. So I kind of came up with an idea of something that I can do on a smaller budget and also show other money people that I'm just not the guy that like makes snuff movies because, my August Underground films are very infamous. And when you look me up, it's kind of like what you see, So The Final Interview was a very character-driven movie. It relied on acting and storytelling more than gore effects, which I'm known for in a lot of my films. So it was a nice little departure, and I'm very proud of the film. I think the film is definitely one of my best for sure.
I really liked it. So the film basically follows Oliver Ross, who is kind of a Geraldo type, fading kind of chat show host, and he is interviewing, what is his name again?
Darius Tidman.
Darius Tidman, yeah. What's the name of the actor who played him? Because you had Granger Hines as Oliver. What was the name of the actor who played Darius again?
His name is Damien Marusak. And Damien,
fantastic.
He's been in a few of my movies. He had a small little part in Maskhead. He had a small little part in Murder Collection. He was the star of Celeturcica. And, I just think he's such an amazing talent that I thought he'd be perfect for the killer Darius Tidman.
He's incredible.
Yeah, so Damien had the script for about a year while I try to raise that money. So I remember telling Damien like, dude, I just want you to grow your hair. Just grow a beard, grow your hair, and then like I'll figure it out what I want your look to look like. And by the time he grew everything out, I'm like, I kind of like the way you look. So we kind of went with that. But Damien had the script for a year. And Granger, he kind of came in at last minute. There was a few other actors that I considered. But then, when it all came down to it, it's like I wanted to work with the guy that worked with Steven Spielberg. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? He was working on Lincoln with Spielberg and Daniel Day-Lewis. And as a director, you want to work with the best people. And it was definitely an amazing learning experience for me working with somebody of that caliber actor. Like
Hmm.
when you're working on the independent films, uh, you don't have a lot of money to pay actors. You're working with a lot of fresh faces. So getting a chance to work with somebody like Granger, who's just so seasoned, he really brought his A game, and it made Damien bring his A game, and those guys were just two forces to be dealt with.
I thought it was I not to spoil anything from the film because the film is the bulk of the film is the interview with Oliver. And then you have Diane Franklin as his from Better Off Dead, all those kind of great 80s films, playing his producer, who's kind of like the voice in his ear. But what I
Yes.
love the not to spoil anything about the film, but one of the scenes that I found most affecting was when Oliver describes the time that he saw a girl killed in Vietnam. That scene's incredible. And I thought it
Yeah.
was I thought it was very notable departure, but also just it kind of showed once again just the strength of having really good dialogue and really good characters, and that you can focus on a very in a way minimalist kind of setup, but create something really kind of tense and create something really tense and intriguing through this kind of meeting of minds of people with no kind of not so much external special effects or anything kind of over dramatic, just this meeting of the two kind of these two men is what's fascinating. And what I love about it is that Oliver's a complete scumbag. And it kind of as he's in between the interview, and I love the way that you use the vintage commercials and stuff like that. But what I love is that in between him interviewing this killer, he's talking on the phone to his mistress and telling her to get an abortion and all this kind of stuff. And it starts to beg this question of like, who is the more vile person here, kind of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. That was an important thing, with the story. When I first came up with the story, it was just going to be like the lost tape of this interview.
Yeah.
And when I told my writing partner, Rebecca Swan, what it was about, and she started going into the script, she came up with the Rhonda character because she was like, Fred, we just need a little something more. It's just really hard. You don't want to make these people fall asleep. And I was like, well, that's what I was worried about. Is like, I just don't want two talking heads. You know what I mean? Like, first off, if I couldn't get the proper actors, like, this could be a fail right off the bat. Like the actors have to be really great. And then when the Rhonda character came in, I was like, oh my God, I love this so much. It adds so much more dimension, but now I got to find another actor who can bring the A game. And, this movie takes place in 1983. It never says the year, but the movie takes place in 1983. And I was hoping with my production design that we did, and, like from the cabs to the phones to the look and the wardrobe and everything like that, we really get that point across. But I wanted an actress who represented the 80s. And Diane Franklin was one of my favorite actresses from the 80s. Last American Virgin, Amityville Horror 2. I've loved her ever since I was young. So I was so excited to get her in the movie. She's amazing.
Oh, she's incredible. Just to say for the listeners who may not know, Rebecca Swan wrote the Masters of Horror, John Carpenter's Masters of Horror episode, Cigarette Burns, which is rightly regarded as one of the best of episodes of that series, and probably a late career highlight for John Carpenter, if we're being honest.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's so good.
But she's one of the few trans women who's working in extreme horror, and she
Yeah.
reached out to you originally to write to want to work with you. That's the how that happened. The kind of
Yeah,
part.
so that was really awesome. So when we it was probably around 2009. I get this message from Scott Swan at the time. And when I got this message, and I'm like, oh my, he explained who he was, and I'm like, oh my God, I love that episode of Cigarette Burns that Carpenter did, and he wrote this, and he wanted to make a movie with Toe Tag. And that was the dream for us. Our dream was like, okay, we're this underground film company, but like, if our sickness can spread into the mainstream, like, how cool would it be if like Hollywood wants to come and make an underground movie with us? And Swan was the first person to do that. So came up with Maskhead. Swan wrote the script and came to Pittsburgh, and we co-directed it together. And from that point on, we were, very close, and our styles work very well together. I'm a really great idea person, and she is an amazing, amazing writer. So, we've all these years later, we continue to work together. There's not a thing that I do that she doesn't get a chance to like put her fingers in or something like that, because I just love the way she writes and everything. So I'm very happy to have somebody like Swan to be my writing partner in my world of movie making.
Is it fair to say that she kind of like you said, you're a great ideas person, not to diminish, your writing ability, but what she kind of brings to it is the fleshing out in terms of additional characters or in terms of a kind of different perspective. Would you think that's a kind of fair kind of summation of what
Absolutely.
her?
So, how my process works is I come up with a movie. And this is how it's always been for Toe Tag. Like, I usually come up with the idea for the movie. And then, like, for when we did the Redson Tower, that was came up with the idea for the movie. And Toe Tag all got together. Like, I love slasher films. Jeremy Cruz, who is the head of Toe Tag Special Effects, loves possession movies. So the Redson Tower was a blend of that. And then Shelby, my wife, and we wrote the script for that. And of course, everybody had like their input, which was really great. But when it came, then Stella Turcica, we did with another writing friend, Don Moore, who ended up being like my script supervisor on a couple projects. But it wasn't really until Swan came around to where when you read something from somebody and you're just like you visually see it, and there's really great writers out there, and there's writers that aren't that great. But I always found out like when I read stuff from Swan that I see it in my head, and it's easier for me to build my movie around that. And to make a great movie, you have to have a great script.
Mhm.
So that's one thing that I don't mess around with anymore is like, you know, oh, I can fix this filming it, or I can fix this with special effects. Now I want to make movies that have a really great backbone and a really great script to them. So it helps me make just the best movie that I can make.
That's interesting, kind of that you say about if there's not a great script, there's not a great movie. Because I mean, we'll get into it later with the August Underground films, but the impression when I did the episode with my friend Nico about Mordom, which I, by the way, think is a five-star masterpiece. I know you are a huge fan of Penance from the trilogy, but I think Mordom is my favorite film of the trilogy. But we'll get into that later. But I find that interesting because I wonder how much was scripted of that. But just before we move on from the final interview, I mean, one of the things that I loved is the score because, and the atmosphere that you kind of create of, like you say, you don't explicitly say that it's 1983, but like, I feel like post Stranger Things world, this neon aesthetic 80s has been done to a point that I'm sick of it.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
but also speaking to people, I remember saying like to people, to speaking with someone who grew up in the 80s in the UK. I'm in Dublin, but she grew up I used to live in London, but she said like when we were kids, it wasn't, chopper bikes and neon. It was like running out of coins for the electricity meter in your council flat. And I've
Hmm.
always remember that meme where people say the thing that you can't overemphasize about the 80s was how brown it is. But even
Yes.
beyond that, it's like I remember when there was with Thomas Alfredson's Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy came out, and he used a song that was from before the film took place, and he responded, "Well, but that's not how culture works. Is that you don't just hear music don't just experience culture from that one moment in time. Like if you turn on the radio at any time in the 70s, 80s, 90s, you're going to hear music from decades previous. And what I
Yes.
liked about the final interview is it also represents that bleed over from the grittier and kind of 70s energy. And the score has like a kind of Bernard Herrmann kind of influence, like Taxi Driver. It gave me a lot of that.
Yes. So that was very important. So Paul Joyce, who did the music for the movie, is a friend of mine, and it was our first time working together. And when I told Paul about the movie and that the movie takes place in the 80s, his first music that he sent me was very Stranger Things-esque. It was that synthy, Tangerine Dream, kind of music. And I was just like, I love this, but stop what you're doing. I'm like, let me send you a couple scenes from the movie that we edited already, and you'll see what I'm talking about. And once I sent him the scenes, he was like, "Oh my God, I get it now." So, like just like you said, so it's 1983. 1978 was not that long ago. The movies from the 70s had those really great orchestral sections and saxophone music, and it wasn't synthy. And I didn't want to make the movie cliche. I did not want to make, the movie to be like hypercolored and neon and things like that. The only person that kind of has that 80s aesthetic look is the makeup artist in the movie. And that's how it would really be, because the makeup artist is always the weird artsy one. So
Yeah.
she has the flashier shirt on where everybody else, or even like Oliver Ross's assistant, he kind of has like an 80s t-shirt under like a Don Johnson look, because he's young and hip. So, and where Oliver's costumes, his suit's like one size, a little two sizes too big because he's lost weight from all the alcohol and all the stuff that he's been doing. So I had all those things in there. And then with the music, the music really helped. Oh, it's so important. It's primal. Like when he's walking through the prison, it's like very primal sounding. And then of course, like when Oliver Ross, you hear his music for his TV show. I wanted something like Magnum PI or something like that you would hear on TV at that moment in time. So it was a lot of studying. I'm a big fan of pop culture. I was born in 1976, and so I grew up in the 80s, loving the 80s. And I just kind of took everything that I loved and I wanted to put it into the movie, but I wanted to be true. It's one thing that I do for all my films is I try to be very truthful to the genre and to the storytelling that I'm trying to tell. I'm not a supernatural kind of guy. I might have little supernatural things if the movie needs it, but
Mhm.
realism is my thing, and I want the movie to feel real, and I want you to come out of it and not be distracted. I want all those set pieces from the 80s to make you feel like you're really there, like you're watching something. So even like when I did the color correction for the film in California, I told my colorist, I'm like, I need you to watch movies from like Pittsburgh in the 80s. So movies like Flashdance and All the Right Moves with, Tom Cruise and things like that kind of show that gritty side of things. The Browns, like we were just talking about. So
Yeah, yeah, for real. And the film that you had a screening at Man's Chinese Theater in LA, didn't you?
did I have it's been such a long time. I don't know if I had this. We've had lots of screenings that were set up that unfortunately I wasn't able to go to.
Yeah.
Um, I remember I got to show Selatursk at the Vine Theater in Hollywood, which was really awesome, and I won an award with William Lustig, the director of Maniac, which was
Yeah, of
like, oh
course.
my God,
Underground distribution legend as well. Like,
oh my God, yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. So, I've been very lucky in my career to have met a lot of my heroes
absolutely.
and now who are my peers, so I'm the older cat making the movies now, you know what I mean? Like I'm the way I look at the underground movie making, the rebirth kind of came in the early 2000s. So I was kind of like right at the forefront for that. So, getting a chance to still continue trying to make movies in 2026 is definitely hard, but it's my passion, and I'll just keep doing it as long as I can.
Hell yeah, I really hope you do. I mean, we are, as we record this, this is New Year's Eve, so you've had your projects that you've been trying to make for a few years, and with the final interview, like I've heard you say, it kind of it was a 2018 film, but it came up against the pandemic in terms of there
Yeah.
was no festivals, there was no screenings, and I had heard of the film a while before I had even seen the August Underground films or started to really kind of look into your work. Just I think through Letterboxd or something, and I remember it had been a long time since Tertia, and I was very like just I was intrigued by the possibility of you having done another film because from my perspective it seemed like things had gone quiet for a moment.
Hmm.
What are
That's
the
that day
projects that you
job.
what do you hope? Sorry?
That's the day job. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Like you
so,
need
so
to.
your day job is working on crew on sets in
I do,
Philadelphia.
yeah. So I'm very lucky that I get to work on a lot of big Hollywood movies here in Pittsburgh, and it's hard to say no to that money, you know.
Absolutely.
Um, and getting, I'm kind of stuck in this weird situation too because, like, when I started making movies, it was all about toe tag, and toe tag was this big giant rock that we had to push up this hill for so many years, and when you make underground movies, you're not making lots of money. And it's when you're in your 20s, it's easy to push up the rock and eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and not really and all live together in the same house. But then, as you get older, life changes, you get married, you buy a car, you buy a house or whatever, and it's really hard to continue, pushing that art. And then, my business partner Jeremy Cruz moved to California where he worked on a lot of the Marvel movies, designing all the suits for like Deadpool and Black Adam and things like that. And now he's a father with twins, and trying to get us to come back together and make art for very little money. Because the way toe tag works is it's not about the money; it's just about the creativeness and the art behind it. But you need money to live. It's like
Of
I can't
course,
take you away
yeah.
from your kids for a month and not pay you. But in 2000, three, that was easy to be like, whatever, call off work. Who cares if I get fired? I'll find another job at a restaurant or
Yeah.
whatever. It's just a little difficult now to get the band together, but it's something that we're really trying to do because I want to make something sick again. So
Oh, that's amazing.
I want to, I really want to do something, and if I can make it with Jeremy and we can work things out, then maybe will be the next toe tag movie, and if not, maybe it's just another Fred Vogel movie. But that's why the final interview was a Fred Vogel movie and not a toe tag movie, is because I couldn't get Jeremy here.
So that's the difference between a toe tag and a Fred Vogel
Yeah,
production,
because it's
the
it's
involvement
it's
of Jeremy.
we're a group. Toe tag's a
Oh,
group.
100%. And I
Yeah.
think that's very clear with the August Underground movies is how collaborative they are. But I think it's interesting that you said like, you are a filmmaker and that's what you were trained in and that's what you come to. But when people think of the August Underground movies and they kind of think of them as just this like sick snuff trash, which is the aesthetic that you're trying to create and do brilliantly create with the film. I think people ignore the fact that like you are a filmmaker. Michael came to you as a filmmaker, and Michael, aka Maggot, has continued to make his own kind of very interesting, idiosyncratic kind of films in that
Sure.
underground space. And I think like I watched the making of Mortem, and that moment where you and Chrissy and Michael are all kind of like cuddled up on the couch. It's like okay, so this is the reality is that these people are like there's a real love between you that's really sweet to see, and it's like they're doing the sickest shit to each other and playing these characters who fucking hate each other, but there's a real love to it, and that's incredible, you know?
Yeah, that when how it started was is like, I made August Underground with a friend of mine named Alan Peters. And we were both working at a video store at the time when we met. And then I went and was teaching at Tom Savini's makeup school. So then I became a teacher. I was teaching, and that whole time was like trying to make something. And then August Underground became the first movie because it was something that I can do on the cheap.
Mm.
Where the movie that I wanted to make was a big zombie film. So I'm in Pittsburgh, George Romero. I'm like I want to make a fucking zombie movie. And it just didn't, financially just didn't work out. So I knew that I can make a serial killer movie. And at the time, anything shot on video just kind of looked shitty. So the idea was like, what if we make it look really shitty? What if we make it really look like a home video? And at the time, nobody really did that. Like,
Yeah.
there wasn't the filters on the computers to make movies look like that. It was like a lot of trial and error that Alan and I were doing to try to like make that happen. Unfortunately, Alan didn't want to be part of the process anymore because of, when we first started showing August Underground to people, everybody thought it was real.
Yeah.
And at the time, he was a father, and he just had I'm sure in his eyes he felt like he had more to lose than me. So he left, and that was really hard because like you create something, and then the person you're creating something with leaves, and then I'm stuck with like, okay, well, what do I do? And then I lose my job because of the movie, and
Yeah.
it's like, oh my God, what the fuck do I do? So it was like one of these things where it's like when you create a piece of art that is so powerful that people don't know if it's real. People are leaving your life because of it. People don't want to, people who you thought were your friends now want nothing to do with you because you're making something that was just so disturbing and sick. It was really hard. So when the next evolution of my career came when I ran into Michael Schneider, who we went to the Art Institute with together, and he had a friend, Christy, and uh, you're like, wow, you see all these other creative people, and these other creative people liked what I was doing. They're like, oh, that's sick and
Mm.
it's awesome, and so that kind of like fed me, and I'm like, oh my God, well, I got this guy Jeremy, who's like my best friend in college, and he's a really great makeup artist, and it's like, well, let's kind of like see what we can create. And at that moment in time, Killjoy from Necrophagia just pops into my life because of Rue Morgue magazine.
R.I.P.
Yeah, so and then Killjoy's just like, I want to make a music video like your August Underground movie. So I was like, all right, well, let's do it. And that seed from Killjoy and Necrophagia helped bring August Underground's Mortem to life and what it became. And because he was really the driving force behind it. I didn't want to make a sequel at all. Again, I wanted to make bigger movies. My goal was never to be the king of the underground. You know,
Hmm.
um, I just happened to make the right movie at the right time. There was Eric Stanzi's Scrapbook. There was Olaf Ettenbach's movies. There's Jim Van Beber, all the stuff, all the guys coming like that were in the '90s who made really great stuff. I totally loved. But August Underground hit a nerve because of just how realistic it looked. People just didn't know what to think of it, and it gave me a platform to where now I can make something else. And it just so happened to be August Underground's Mortem, which then becomes even bigger because of just how disgusting it was. It was just like, oh my God, what are these fucking people making?
I don't know if you got a chance to listen to our episode on Mortem, but I did say during the episode I was like Fred seems like a really nice guy. I do for a second I was like, how does someone come up with something that depraved? And I'm sorry because that's the cliche, but it's like occasionally you do have to be like, how does someone come up with something that depraved? But the other thing
Yeah.
is that me and my co-host on that episode, Nico, we fell in love with Crusty.
She's amazing in the
She's
movies.
amazing. I know we can't blow up her spot too much because she doesn't want to be associated with the films anymore. And I think you replied to me on Instagram saying that she's in a good place and that you're still in contact with her. Is it
Absolutely, yeah.
is it true that she moved to Germany and changed her name? Or can you answer that?
No, no, no. She's still in America, and but she's doing amazing in life. She's a mother, and she is so happy.
I'm glad.
Again, like when you're young, you're free, you're freer. You know what I mean? Like you're able to, you don't have any big plans yet. You're still trying to create what you want to create. And, one thing that, Christy is she is an artist, a 100% artist.
Absolutely.
And when you're that kind of artist, you are willing to sacrifice everything for art. And I think that's where all of us kind of, if you strip us all down, that's what we all are. Like whenever somebody rates me and says, Fredo, I love your movies, I'm always like, thank you for enjoying my art. Because that's really what they are. The August Underground are art films. Because, we're the paint that goes onto the canvas, which is the movie. And The movies wouldn't be what they are if us as artists didn't, you know, spill our guts on the altar to make these things. Like the blood, sweat, and tears literally that go into making these movies are all on the screen. Everything you see is true to a point. I know, Michael and Christy would take their liberties a little bit more of a method acting than I would. I was able to kind of turn mine on and off because I had to, like when I was when I was making the first one, I had to be like a makeup artist and I had to be the director and I had to make sure the set was good. And then I had to act in it. And then I had to make sure everybody was safe. And I had to make sure everything was cleaned up. And my neighbors didn't know that I was like slaughtering people in the house kind of thing. And so by the time it came to August Underground's Mortem, I had, Michael and Christy, who were these very free spirits and very just method, who were willing to do whatever it took. And that's why the movie, I believe is just more vile because Killjoy would always be like, oh, it has to be more depraved. And
Yeah.
where I want to make a horror movie. So,
Yeah.
I want more gore. I want more things like that where, the sexual depravity and things like that were a lot more relevant in August Underground's Mortem is because we had other people in there that were just like, let's do it. I would have
Yeah.
never thought about like doing a scene where you vomit on girls. I like
That scene.
no, no,
Jeez.
no. That comes from another sick mind. But
Yeah.
it made the movie. And
No,
like
100%. I think for me, Mortem is a so much more disturbing film than things like a Serbian film, which become the byword for extreme film. That like
yeah,
we will call them civilians, people who are not versed in extreme horror, have heard of
sure,
a Serbian film, and it's a punchline. And I think I have always said, when talking with like, extent people in my polycule and stuff like that, I'm like, yeah, a Serbian film is a powerful film and it's conceptually disturbing. But what makes Murder more disturbing to me is the real self-harm, the real puke, and the commitment to go there as artists. And I mean, how was it? How was it in terms of was there a written script or was there like an outline of what was going to happen? And I know that there was a lot of with your actors, there was negotiated kind of like safe words and stuff like that to make sure that people were comfortable and were okay with what was happening. How much of a structure was there to what was going to happen?
yeah. So
Because
on the first August
obviously,
Underground, there was a script. But it was pretty much just like, okay, break it down to where I didn't have to memorize lines. You know what I mean? It was just like, all right, here's the situation. Just kind of like let me go. Because for the first August Underground, I wanted somebody else to be the killer, so I could be the director. I wasn't planning on being the killer. So we hired somebody, and we did a test shoot. And from start to finish, it just did not work. The actor who played he was very good, but he just wasn't what the character needed to be. And even the victim the person who we hired as the victim, there was drama going on from the time it started. Like her boyfriend was there that day, and there was it was a girl in the basement,
yeah,
and
it's on the back of my
he'd get
t-shirt,
all
right?
mad. He was getting all mad because like I don't want my girlfriend naked. I'm like, well, that's what she signed up for, and it was just like, all right, she's fired. Get the fuck out of my house. And then I had to talk with my buddy who was playing the character, my character, and I was just like, dude, I got to rethink things. And I'm so glad that it was like that. And Alan agreed. Alan was just like, he's just like, Fred, dude, you are the guy. Like, you are 6'3". You have this baby face. Like you look like the guy next door. So then it was just like, all right, well, if I'm going to do it, then I don't have to worry about like, because I knew, pushing the envelope. Like there were scenes in this, in the script for August Underground to where like we would inject shit into, this guy's dick and make it infected. I mean, there was all this stuff, and I was like, well, shit, man, if we do this stuff and we get in trouble, it's going to be me getting in trouble. And I'm like, I can handle that. I'll be the guy that
Yeah.
gets in trouble. A lot of those scenes didn't work out because the effects were just too elaborate for us to do. They sound great on paper, like injecting shit with a syringe into some guy's dick or into a nipple and having an infection start. But at the time, we just couldn't pull it off. I kind of lost my
I was just asking about in terms of Mortem, was there
Oh, the
outline?
script. Yes, yes. My bad. Okay. So no, so we all kind of took liberty into some of those scenes where, for instance, the scene with Maggot and Crusty with the corpses in the crates. That was those guys. Those guys came up with with the scene and the dialogue and what they were doing. We would have the effect, whatever the effect was that was going on in the scene was kind of the backbone to the scene, and then we would just be able to ad lib and work with each other.
Yeah, because obviously the
Um,
effects have to be planned. You have to have
of course,
styles.
and it has to be choreographed too because Jeremy's hiding underneath the table and you don't want to see him because that camera has to be able to do complete 360s. So yeah, we would write a little paragraph of like, all right, the killers are in the basement. There's a dead guy on the floor. There's two girls in there that get vomited on. Like that would be the paragraph, and then we would just bring it to life, and that worked. And so even like when August Underground's Penance came around. Penance, at first, I wanted to make it part movie, part home video. And, Gunnar Hansen, who played Leatherface in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, was a friend of mine, and he was going to play my father. And it was going to be this bigger thing. I wanted, like, Roger Watkins from the director of Last House on Dead End Street to be in it. Like, all the people who I've met from the time I started making movies, I wanted to bring them into this world. And then it all really kind of came down to like, wait a minute, like if I do that, it takes away this world. I'm like
Yeah.
changing it. And so I'm kind of glad that never happened. The script's out there. That was the bigger movie, but when it came down to it, it was like, all right, let's just kind of like strip it down, bare
Yeah.
bones, just like the other two. And at the time, we were just all so in love with each other. I say this a lot when I talk about Penance, is that, we just came off the Redson Tower and, working so hard on that movie and then jumping back into another August Underground film. We were just so happy because we were making movies and we're like, we don't need to you don't need to hurt yourself. There doesn't need to be real blood. Like we can make this all fake and it shines because I think Penance it's just so dark,
Yeah.
but yet like in reality, we were just like fucking killing it as artists for the movie.
I
And a
think
good place in toe tag at the time.
I think Mortem is my favorite, but I think that the trilogy does have to be seen as a trilogy because I think those films show the decline of the characters and also the effect that doing this will have on a character, and that like Peter by the third film is unable to maintain an erection. There's all
For
this stuff
sure.
that's
Yeah.
not.
Well,
Sorry,
yeah,
go
that
on.
was a big thing. That was a big thing for the movies was, like you said, I made the first one, did not want to make a second one. But the second one came around and now I had to make where do I go from here? Because like the second one had too many hands in the pot in my eyes. I was like, all right, well, it's kind of taken away from like the first one, now there's a lot of elements that I really loved about August Underground's Mortem, but then there was a lot of stuff that I didn't like. So I'm like, well, if I do a third one, I can wrap it up to where it kind of like comes full circle back to the way the feel of the first movie was, but yet still had those elements that I liked from August Underground's Mortem, of which is Christy and my character and the decline of that relationship. Jeremy always makes fun of me. He's just like, why do you make all these movies about love? And it's just like, well, I think love is the strongest emotion in life, and it's really that's what those movies are. It's as fucked up as they are, they're all love movies. Everything's about if you really like strip it all down, peel the onion, all those layers, there's love in each one of those movies. From the characters loving what they do to the characters loving each other to them not knowing how to deal with love. So the August Underground movies is definitely a love story in a weird, sick and twisted way.
I love that. I mean, I think maybe it's the chaos of Mortem that is the thing that makes it my favorite. I think,
It's
but
it's it's so raw. I can understand
oh,
why it's a lot of people's favorite. It's just because it's 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 annihilation on your brain
oh
because
yeah.
of how chaotic it is.
But the long extended takes are incredible, and this is the thing is that, but also I feel from those, particularly the second and third films, there's this sense of fatalism, of nihilism, and of when I think that when Krusty says to that the corpse of that little girl, "Guess you won't have to grow up, sweetie." it's a disgusting line, but also it's her saying she's not gonna have to grow up and go through the things that Krusty went through that made her the person who she is.
Yeah.
And the stuff around Christmas where Krusty breaks down in the third film, to me it's also the like I feel like there's not this superiority in the August Underground films where it feels like you're trying to put across that the killers are cool and this superior feeling of them versus the victims and because that can exist in underground horror, I think this feeling of superiority to the victims that doesn't
Yeah.
exist in the August Underground movies because the perpetrators are as much victims themselves as I mean they are a danger to each other and they're a danger to themselves.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the things in the article that Unearthed shared that I wrote about extreme horror, one of the things that I said is that I think that like you said, these movies are art and they're deserving of more analysis or just acknowledgement that they're art than the headline YouTube clickbait headline of this is the sickest movie that exists. But I mean, we're talking over 20 years, nearly 20 years since Penance, but over 20 years since Mortem. How does it feel to still have people talking about these movies? And I will
Oh,
say it. I will say as well, you say that, you caught the right time, but I don't know if you know Louise Ward, who made Castration movie. She started out working with Ryan Nicholson, but
mhm.
she's a big fan of yours, and I heard about more than through a podcast she did. But from what she says, you were at all the conventions and you had a table at all these. Like it wasn't just a case of luck, like you were doing the work to be there at that time.
Yeah. Well, so trying to get distribution for the movie back then was impossible. Nobody wanted to touch it. So it was just like, okay, well, we're just going to be our own distribution company. And um, the one thing that we did that was different from everybody else is we made legit copies of our movies. Like they were real DVDs. They weren't burns. They weren't anything like that. So it was actually the real product. And then to go sell the product, we went out and toured the country and did all these conventions and met people. And then we would show movies in hotel rooms, and like 50 people would show up to a hotel room, and then by the time the movie's over, there's 8 people left, but those 8 people are still our fans to this day. It that's what those movies are about. The movies are about they're not for everybody. They're made for certain sickos, you know what I mean, that want
Yeah,
to see something
that makes
different
sense.
and want to see something true, like I hated the fact that we glorify serial killers. I mean nowadays it's so crazy because like Netflix and podcasts and everything talks about true crime. We're just so fascinated with these people who are just fucking sickos. Where in reality, like, what if that was your mom being murdered or your brother being killed or whatever? Like, it's until it hits home, you can't realize it. And that's where I always wanted to stay true to the subject matter. I didn't want the violence to ever be pretty. I've always wanted it to be real and brutal. And I think that's why it has the longevity is because there's no bullshit. There's nothing funny about it. It's like pure raw emotion that goes into it. And I mean, again, that's why they're art films. They're not made to make money. Like if I wanted to make money off the August Underground films, I wouldn't have made them. You know, I made August Underground for my first movie because I wanted to kick the fucking door down and I wanted to show people like I'm a special effects guy. Like I love gore films. I moved to Pittsburgh because of Tom Savini. I love fucking Frankenstein. I love monster movies and I love gore films. And I wanted to make my serial killer movie, but I wanted to just do it in a way that was different than everybody else. Like I didn't want it natural born killers, and I didn't want it Silence of the Lambs. I wanted people to, think what they were watching was real. And at that moment in time, with the early stages of the internet, clips from August Underground would pop up on these real death sites, and people thought what they were seeing was real. So it
Yeah.
kind of like took on this crazy mythos, and it still has. Like, now 20 years later, people know my character's name is Peter. But for years, nobody knew the character's name. Like I mentioned it in a commentary, I think, and that's how people knew about it. But you never know these characters' names. Like or in August Underground's Mortem, I'm like singing maggot, come and whatever. So that's where you hear it. But like again, it's if it was designed to be more of like a 3-act structure, the movies wouldn't be what they are. And that's kind of like where the difference between Serbian film and August Underground is that Serbian film is a three-act structure and it's a movie, where August Underground and and the trilogy aren't movies; they are home videos of these
Yeah.
sociopaths.
They're committed to that aesthetic. I think I know you've mentioned before as kind of like one of the early kind of underground people. One work that I think those films, the AU films have in common with is Jörg Buchreit's films. I think that in Jörg's films, the men, even when they're murderers, they are insipid, kind of like pathetic
Yeah.
males, and I think that's something that is common in the in your films as well.
Oh yeah, I love Yorg's movies.
I literally have a got fucking long sleeve. I literally have a Toad is King tattoo on the top of my arm. You probably
There
I
you
can't get
go. I've always thought about getting into this King tattoo. You know, movies like Necromantic and Aftermath, and a lot of this, a lot of the stuff that came out in the 90s where these guys were just pushing the envelope, and and they weren't people here in America weren't doing it. All this stuff was coming from
yeah.
overseas. So when I got my hands on Necromantic, to see Necromantic for the first time, or to see Men Behind the Sun, a lot of the stuff on Dead Alive that was putting out at the time, um, it was so influential. But but you did have guys, and you had to search them out through like Fangoria magazine in the back. But that's where you get like Sub Rosa movies, and that's where I discovered like Eric Stanzi, and of course, Jim Van Beber.
I'm a huge Van Beber fan.
Yeah,
My
there
my
was a lot of
sweet
there was
dating.
definitely a lot of talent that was here in America, but like again, we were kind of stifled, and nobody was really pushing it so far. Like nobody knew the line. Like what's too far? And when you like strip down August Underground it's so weird because it's kind of taken its own Texas Chainsaw Massacre mythos where, oh my God, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is so gory and bloody. August Underground is so gory and bloody, and it's not. Like, it's a lot of it's aftermath stuff. So you see a little bit of, blood there and a blood here, but like I'm showing you a guy in a bathtub with his dick cut off. I'm showing you a girl with her nipple cut off that I'm smearing shit into. Like, I'm taking what is already sick and disturbing and then just, just putting whipped cream and a cherry on top with those other pieces there. And that's what separates, you know, August Underground from everything else. Like me doing a girl doggy style, smashing her in the head with a hammer. You know what I mean? Like who does that? Nobody's seen anything like that. And again, and the mockery too. And it was,
Yeah, the degradation is a huge part.
yeah, yeah. And again, at that moment in time, like if you go back in the time machine and you look at what 1999 to 2001 was, it was, you know, video cameras you can go buy at your local electronic shop, and they were cheap. Now you can actually get those, so people had their hands on making tapes and making videos. There was Jackass that was happening. There was, people, America's Funniest Home Videos,
Yeah, like the
showing
ban from
everybody
TV
like,
videos as well. Like,
yeah.
yeah,
So it was just like, all right, well, what if I showed you something that was just so horrendous that you just couldn't take your eyes off of it? And August Underground it's under 80 minutes, but it feels
Mm.
like 3 hours long
Yeah. We
because
said that
it's
during the episode.
just so you feel like you're watching something real. You don't know, you have no idea what the next scene is going to be. You can't predict, if it's going from the basement to me jumping on a hay bale, you know,
Yeah, I
or
love the I love the going to a show scenes that are in every one of those movies because I think it it shows that these are human beings, and that's more disturbing. But also, I think it shows a kind of connection between, to me, between like the extreme underground kind of metal and punk scenes and this kind of extreme behavior. But I think that's, for me, enjoying extreme horror can be kind of seen in in the same way as a lot of other extreme activities, getting tattooed, piercings, BDSM if you're into that. Like these are activities that give you a kind of catharsis that is that's what extreme horror and all these other things can give you. Is that's the way that I thought about it.
sure. And I always talk, we're punk rock, like we,
Nonsense.
we would make our own shirts. We would hand print these things until we made enough money to buy our own screen printing machine. We, we I remember like our business cards were toe tags. Like it was all marketing. Because like I'm a wrestling fan, so like I grew up watching WWE um and listening to Kiss and the Misfits and all that stuff, all the marketing that those guys did, that DIY style was just branding, and I loved it. So the we had the sick art that we were able to show people, but that yet our marketing was really important too. And I think that's how Toe Tag was able to keep growing and growing and growing because like now they're creating so much more than just the movies. They're like, look at all this artwork. You can buy their paintings, you can buy their fake blood, you can do all this stuff. Like at one moment in time,
Hammers.
Toe Tag, we had all kinds of stuff for people to get. And it was exciting because we were just artists creating. It's like every day is like, what can we create? What can we create to sell? What can we create to push the movies? Because once the movies get out there, they kind of take a life of their own,
100%.
and you don't know what's going to happen with them. Do I get a letter from the government from the Netherlands saying that August Underground's Penance is banned? And yes, like that shit happens. Or I go to Canada and get arrested for the movies. Shit like that fucking happens, and that just shows me that the power of art is so strong. And if you make something that is uncompromised, that's where true life can grow from that because there's nothing holding it back. You're not putting a fence around a garden. You're just letting it grow, you know.
Is there ever any kind of sense of regret from you over like the long shadow that this work has cast? Because like you said, like this has caused you to lose your job. The August Underground films cast a long shadow over how people perceive you as a filmmaker. Like, is there, I mean, maybe regret isn't the word, but is there, you have lived the life with the consequences from going there. And I think
Yeah.
you should be applauded for that 100%. But that's a tough thing to take on, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely it is. So, to answer the question, is it regret or is it, life? Like,
Mm,
not everybody is going to like you. We're not perfect people. We make
yeah.
mistakes, sometimes good and sometimes bad. What matters to me is, yes, I lost people who I cared about because of these movies, but as an artist, I'm so proud of my work. Like when I see all these people, getting my face tattooed on them or just, writing me really nice letters about how the movies inspired them to become their own filmmakers or become their own artists. That's worth it. It's just like, well, maybe you're not in my life anymore because I outgrew you, and that just happens in life. I've
Yes.
always explained it as like, it's like an orbit. Some people come into your orbit and they're there for, maybe they're there for 5 minutes or maybe they're there for 5 years, but then sometimes they go out into another orbit and you don't see them anymore. It's not a bad thing. Does it hurt the soul a little bit because you miss them? Absolutely. I was put on this planet to create art, my with my movies and with everything that I put my heart and soul into, there's an artist behind it. I have no regrets in that sense, but of
Oh, yeah.
course, we're not perfect,
I
and
mean, in terms of talking about your work inspiring people, have you ever had any interaction with Ethel Kane? Because her track called August Underground has obviously been huge and was her relating her own kind of fears to the film and stuff. Have you had any kind of like acknowledgement either way from Ethel towards you or
no, I haven't. But again, I'm glad that it inspired her. People who don't know me, there's either you're afraid of me or you've heard, oh, he's a nice guy, kind of thing.
yeah.
Now again, that's the power of the art. Like nobody wanted to meet Alice Cooper; they were too afraid of him. But then you're like, wait a minute, this guy is like really smart and really nice. And again, it's a character.
Yeah.
Um, I'm a character from a movie. I'm Fred Vogel, the filmmaker, the producer, the director. I'm trying to create and make movies, but my character might be a fucking sick, disgusting human being. Or it's like, oh, uh, how does somebody, so nice think of that kind of shit, And it's just like, oh, well, I always equated to, I call it my macabre gene to where it's just I just think a little bit darker than everybody else. So like when that transcends to other people to inspire them, like Ethel Cain to write a song about August Underground, I think that's awesome. And we know when the time comes and we get a chance to meet each other, I'm sure it'll be lovely. But as of right now, I wish her the best, and I'm glad that August Underground could, spread the sickness in what she's doing.
Oh yeah. I mean, one thing that kind of still sticks out to me is that it feels like with the popularity of the Terrifier films that we've had with Terrifier 2 coming out, we've had these moments of extreme gore being really popular and a kind of I think a moment of in the mainstream of extreme horror being acknowledged. However, it still seems to me like there is an upper limit in that even no matter how strong the desire for gore in these films gets, you're not going to have something that goes as far as August Underground or even a Serbian film. That's too much still for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, what do you think of the Terrifier films and where extreme horror is at? Because I think that the Terrifier films are slasher movies, but they've also taken that kind of that level of cruelty, that mean-spirited streak from like the underground American horror, North American horror of the 2000s. I feel like that's definitely in the DNA of those films.
Well, absolutely. So I think what Damien has done with the Terrifier movies is great. I mean, to see those movies on the big screen, all,
Incredible.
all uncut and gory, it's fantastic. Us as filmmakers, we all travel down the same road, and sometimes that road gets a little hairy with a little overgrown weeds, and then we come in and chop it down to make it a little easier for the next person coming up. So that's how I look at it. I look at it like, what Totag accomplished and I accomplished with my films has helped these other filmmakers be able to push, push, push. And again, like if August Underground was a clown, like maybe it would reach a whole different audience. But like people like clowns, like his formula worked better for the masses, where I never wanted to do that. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where if we go back in time and you look at how like Black Christmas started the revolution of like all these slasher movies that would come after it, from Halloween to Friday the 13th to Nightmare on Elm Street. It's all the same kind of formula. And I think what Terrifier did was it took that formula and up the ante with a special effects guy making the movies. And I think that's where Toe Tag shine too, is like that's why our effects always were so prominent, is because we're effects people making an effects movie, where Terrifier is an effects guy making an effects movie.
Yeah,
And
totally.
effects guys know how to shoot effects. I've worked on so many movies with people who, they might be a fantastic director, but they don't know how to shoot the special effect. And you have to really listen to your effects artist, because the prop it's a rubber prop. Like if it's not shot the right way, it's going to look even more like rubber. You have to make sure that it's shot properly, so it gives the illusion that you're seeing something real. And I think with Damien's background as a special effects artist, he knew that and was able to just keep taking to the next level. And when you have more money, you're able to do more bigger gags and have better sets and all this stuff. So what he's done is only better for the genre. And I just want the genre to
Always.
thrive. Like I love horror movies, so I just want to keep the horror movies coming, and I want to see them in the theater too.
I think it's amazing to have that experience of seeing something that's that messed up in the multiplex cinema is
Yeah,
incredible. It's the same as, I don't know what you thought of The Substance, but towards the end of The Substance, when I saw it in like a mainstream cinema and was like, this is like a fucking society with brains dead alive or brain dead level gore. I think that's brilliant
absolutely.
and
Yeah,
subversive.
I saw it in the theater. Yeah, and there was only two people in the whole movie theater, but I'm glad that I was able to see it on the big screen. And it kind of like it takes you back, because growing up in the '80s, where overseas you had the video nasties, and here in America, like the MPAA was trying to cut all this stuff out. But if you look at the Friday the 13th, man, it's so tame compared to
Yeah.
like what we even see on television like right now. Like I work on a TV show called Mayor of Kingstown, and the gore that they do in Mare of Kingstown is way more violent and way more realistic than a Friday the 13th movie. But,
Hmm.
it's times have changed. We've become more desensitized as a society, and we want to see more stuff like that. But it's, at that time it was like the 80s. It was still that kind of gore, and the slasher movies was such like a big thing. And America was just in a different place too, with like, the advisory stickers, like you can't listen to NWA, because it's got bad words in it. Like we're very tight and
Yeah, the
very
Satanic Panic as
protective,
well.
very protective of the youth. Where nowadays it's with the internet, man, you can see anything you want to see on your Instagram. You can, you can watch people getting shot. Right, it's everything is right there, right now, and
Mhm.
it's a whole different society. So I think for horror to grow, you gotta have to adapt to like what's going on in the world as well.
100%. I think it's interesting. What I find interesting is that your films are still shocking, and that's they still have that power, and they haven't been, despite how much I feel like the culture has caught up in terms of a permissiveness towards extreme violence on television and also in movies. There's still, I find it fascinating for me that there's still these films that in the extreme end of horror that still disturb and still have the ability to go there. And that's what's really powerful to me is like I remember after watching Morden being like, I didn't think a film could go too far for me. And it did. Because I'm 35 now. I've been into horror since I was a teenager. I've been watching films for a long time, and at a certain point it's hard not to get a bit jaded or to feel like things that I would have loved when I was a teenager. Now I'm like, that was good. I've seen it before. It's hard not to get jaded.
Yeah,
But your work still, there's a level that I feel the mainstream will never go past. And I don't mean that as a criticism. I mean that as I think that the work that is not for everyone is going to mean so much to the people who it's for.
yeah. No, it's a wild thing. I tell the story. Gunnar Hansen, who played Leatherface in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, he was one of the first people to see August Underground. We did a convention in Pittsburgh, and it was a very slow convention, so we had a lot of time to hang out. And my movie was August Underground was playing, and he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna check out your movie," and I'm like, "Oh my God, no, you can't go see that." I didn't know, I didn't want like one of my heroes to like go watch my movie and then think it was freaking shit. Again, it was still such in the early stages that I didn't have the confidence that the movie was good. Like you don't know what it's I know yeah, it's good, yeah, it's bad. Like I didn't know, I still didn't know how I felt about it.
Hmm.
And then, Gunnar Hansen goes and watches August Underground, and he comes out of the theater, the screening room, and he's like, Fred, he's like, that was your Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He's like, how the first time I saw Chainsaw, he's like, it was so raw, and I didn't, even though I'm in it and I make it, until you see it on the screen, you don't really realize the power that the movie has. And he's just like, your movie made me feel that way. So, hearing that come from Leatherface was like the greatest compliment that I ever got. And it happened again with Roger Watkins, the director of Last House on Dead End Street, where, when I gave them the tape, he kind of like blew it off. He's like, oh, thanks, kid, whatever. And then like a week later, he's just like, yo, this is like the Citizen Kane of fucking horror movies. He's like, you've done something that like, you know, and I'm like, oh my God. Don Edmonds, the director of the Ilsa movies, like same thing. It was just like, these people that I admire were starting to see my movie and like understanding it. Filmmaker to filmmaker was very special. So it's to have the longevity that the August Underground movies have, and still to this day, like thank God for us doing this partnership with Unearthed Films and putting the movies out on Blu-ray, because
Hmm.
now a whole new generation of kids are discovering August Underground that couldn't get it before. Because remember, to get August Underground, you had to get it from me in Toe Tag. Like you had to order from the Toe Tag website, or if you saw us at a convention. But it was that personal. It was me handing it to you.
Yeah.
Um, now you can go on Walmart.com and order August Underground or whatever, you know what I mean? And because it's MVD puts it out. But I'm getting so many new fans, especially young ladies, 15, 16-year-old girls, they love it, and it's like, man, it's changed to where it was all boys back in the day, and now it's
Mhm.
girls watching it because it's their, when they go over their sleepovers, they're hanging out there, oh, you want to see something fucked up, and like put this in. And I fucking love that, man. Like that's to me, I think that's just the coolest thing. So I'm excited that, my catalog of movies are going to be coming out through Unearthed, and a whole new generation of people will be seeing, the toe tag catalog, and I'm really excited about that.
Absolutely. And I think a huge amount of the appeal to women is Christy as
Yeah.
Crusty. I think that to see a girl who is mentally ill is a moment of seeing yourself on screen, and I think it's huge. And I don't know, like I remember seeing that you liked one other posted a bit from my article, but I think for me as a trans woman, like a huge part of the appeal of extreme horror is this feeling like we are used to this feeling of disassociation from our bodies. And there's
Mhm.
these moments in extreme horror where you see, especially in the August Underground films, where you see human beings reduced to an object. That existential horror of being reduced to meat.
Mhm.
And I mean, how does that feel to kind of hear those perspectives as someone
I
who
love it.
wasn't coming to
Yeah.
it from those?
No, it's fascinating, and again, it's so it makes me feel great as an artist to know that like the movie's affecting people still after all this time, and people being able to like relate in a sense that they're seeing something that's just so extreme, like, I have all these mixed emotions inside, but not this character is like way over the top. I don't ever want to go there, but it's cool that I get to I know this is a movie, and I know that I can like live through that. I never wanted, people, when you make movies like this, you can draw many kinds of people in. You can draw like the people who love gore effects that understand horror movies. You can draw on people that are really sick and twisted and want to see fucked up shit. You can draw on, horny dudes that think Christie's hot and, or whatever. Or even,
She is.
people be attracted to my character, the maggot character, or whatever. That's the thing about movies. It draws all different kinds of people in. Um, I'm just I'm just glad that the August Underground sickness kind of scares them enough to stay put a little bit, because they are very powerful movies, and they there is some real to them. There
100%.
is some real to them.
100%. So I mean, in terms of like I asked a little bit earlier, but in terms of what do you hope will happen in terms of 2026? Like what is the projects that you've talked about wanting to do something with Jeremy again, do another toe tag film, but like
Yeah.
what are the projects that you're trying to get off the ground or to get moving?
Yeah, so I mean, I have an arsenal of stuff that I want to get off the
I know
ground.
there's a Christmas slasher.
I have a Christmas movie that I want to do. I got a Frankenstein movie that I want to do. I have a project called Pittsburgh Body Removal that has been like my dream project for years now. That was the one that was almost happened before the final interview. But there's a huge part of I don't like to give stuff away until it's ready. But I'm feeling nostalgic and wanting to go back to my roots in some ways, especially sick wise. The final interview again was very much like, hey, can I direct actors? Can I tell a story without relying on gore? Which I thought I did a really great job.
You did,
And
yeah, 100%.
but I love coming up with really sick and twisted things to kind of like wake people up a little bit. So that's kind of what I've been working on now. Is I got a few things that I'm playing with idea wise that are gonna be pretty damn raw, you know. And again, it's when I made August Underground, I was in my early 20s. Now this in 2026, I'm gonna be 50 years old.
You don't
So
look it.
yeah, it's interesting to now look back and see like what I've done and what I plan on doing for the future. And I think sometimes you have to look through the old photo albums to get inspired again. And
Hmm.
that's kind of where I'm at. I'd love for Toe Tag to make another movie. I'm hoping that Jeremy and Shelby and I can kind of get it all together. If not, then I'm still going to create what I got to create because I have to expel the demons.
Absolutely, 100%. And I mean, my own background is I studied film in college, and I tried to work in the industry for a bit. So I understand, and I have a bunch of very close filmmaker friends. So like I understand how hard it is to try and make work, and particularly now when the revenue streams are falling further away, which seems to be that they're just putting more money is going in the hands of mega corporations and out of the hands of artists. But you've lived it and continue to be like a true independent, and I think that's worth congratulating you on.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, because nobody was doing it the way that I was doing it then, and now it's kind of the way now. So I know, like I said, the relationship I have with Unearthed, I hope to do stuff with them and work together and be able to get the movies out there to the people better than I could have got them out with Toe Tag. So, um,
It's the
you just
first
have
time
to, what's
someone
that?
else it's the first time someone else has really released these films, isn't it? You
It's
did
it's it's the only time somebody's ever released it. I mean, Massacre Video did a small little run of the VHS tapes of August Underground a few years ago, but the hard work that we've put into these DVD, these Blu-rays for the August Underground movies. I mean, there's tons of features on there. There's tons of stuff,
yeah.
and the box set's going to be coming out this year, so
Oh,
that's
incredible.
gonna have even some more behind the scenes stuff, and a little bit more. I want it to be the be all end all of it because physical media it's tough because like it's starting to fade, but yet there's also like a renaissance to it as well. So you never really
Yeah.
know. I just want to make sure all the stuff I can get out there while it's still fresh in the brain after all these years. I want to get out. So I just want to keep making sure all the toe tag releases that come out through Unearth look great and have tons of features on there and make everybody happy, make the fans happy.
Hell yeah. I mean, the question that people are going to want me to ask about the upcoming box set is it will that include the maggot cut of Mordom?
Yeah, so we could talk about that for a second. That cut of the movie is called it's really the premiere cut. It's like the when we did the Pittsburgh premiere of the movie.
Yeah.
Um, I just got how what was happening is that I went to Europe to shoot a documentary for Necrophagia. While I was away in Europe for the month and a half, Christy, Michael, and Jeremy were back here, and Michael was putting together an edit of the movie. So when I got back home, there was a discrepancy going on in the world of toe tag. Michael's kind of like went rogue and started editing and starting to put other stuff that wasn't in the movie. And Jeremy and Christy were both like, "We're done with this. We want to like we want to continue doing stuff with you, Fred, but we don't." It was there was a kind of a split that was starting to happen, and I was like, "Well, I got to go work on this necrophagia thing that I shot out there." Like, again, I this August Underground's Mortem was kind of a
A
project
music
that was
video, but
happening that I wasn't
yeah.
100% behind.
Okay.
It was a music video, you know what I mean? It was like, okay, but now we have all these scenes, and now, you know, Michael's putting scenes where he was a child in there and things like that. And I'm just like, what's going on here? So when I got back home, I really had to put the foot down and be like, listen, August Underground is mine. And if this is an August Underground thing, like I need to take this back. So that's
Hmm.
what happened. Like I came back, we shot additional scenes for the movie, which had more gore, like the junkie scene in the house, the opening scene where Christy and Maggot are having sex, even though that's not
Hmm.
really Michael, it's somebody else doubling him, and
Oh, really?
yeah. But all that stuff that was all and that was stuff that I thought the movie needed. It needed, even though the movie doesn't have plot points to it, it
Yeah.
needed to have that segment in there so you knew, okay, this is just fucked up brother and sister shit that was going
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
So that's movie making, and that's where I needed to put all those little pieces back in there, and add more gore. It's like we
Mhm.
did this Killjoy slit throat with Shelby in the barn.
Yeah.
Uh, all that stuff was just I wanted to put more gore back into the movie and take out more of the sex stuff that Maggot was bringing to the table. So like when I came back, took control of my movie again, and Michael went his own way, and Christy, Jeremy, and Shelby and I, went the other way. So for the fans, we're gonna put that cut onto the movie, but it will be the premiere cut. It won't. It might not be his exact cut that he's been selling, which he shouldn't have been.
Oh, sorry.
But yeah, again, see, this is the thing is like I can't take it. Michael is a very talented artist, and the movie August Underground's Mortem wouldn't be what it is without him.
Hmm.
For the good and for the bad. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like his character is fucking filthy and disgusting and awesome. And if there was no Michael, there'd be no Christy. You know what I mean? So like
Hmm.
back in the day where I was more protective and fought more for that kind of stuff. Now it's been so many years. I'm just like like water under the bridge kind of shit, man. I don't want to
But
carry that baggage around.
you're on good terms with Michael now, or am
Yeah,
I?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. Again, when you're in your 20s making shit, you're it's so different. And then, like, Michael's just a year or two younger than me. So it's like now you have all this life experience and he's created some great little movies himself. So,
It all
but
becomes bullshit as you get older. You realize that a lot of, in my experience, I've fallen out with people and then thankfully patched it up with people just before they passed. And in my experience, like at a certain point, you just kind of go like, did what happened matter? Like, does it really matter now?
yeah,
And you move on.
no,
That's my experience. But I think also, especially if you're creating art that is that raw artistic personalities are going to be extreme and that may result in friction between people.
sure, sure. Jeremy Cruz, who is like, one of my best friends. We've known each other since we are in college together. We're both alphas. So, there hasn't been a toe tag movie where him and I weren't barking face to face at each other, like ready to kill each other. But at the end of the day, it's a kiss on the cheek and I love you and let's make the best movie that we can make. It's just that, you know, when you're putting your being into something, you will do whatever it takes to get your point across, to the point to where you might be so fucking angry and red hot that you say things, you do things you might not mean. But at the end of the day, it's all about getting it onto the screen, you
Hmm.
know. And that's how I look about that alternate cut of the movie is of course there's a part of me that's just like that's not the true cut of the movie. That's why it shouldn't be out there.
I've never
But
seen it, to be honest.
yeah,
I've not seen
but
it. I know
to
it's a mythic thing.
yeah, well, and that's the thing too is like so I want to we talked about it and it's just like well let's put it out there so the fans can finally get a chance to see it, to see these other scenes like those. A lot of those deleted scenes ended up making it into the August Underground Blu-ray of the Saga cut.
Hmm.
When Toe Tag put out the August Underground trilogy on Blu-ray, we did like a full edit of all three movies put together in one timeline where we put the deleted scenes back into, and you
Hmm.
have like one big giant fucking movie, which is crazy. So we took a lot, those are some of the scenes that came out of that premiere cut or the maggot cut. So for us, for the box set to have that version of the movie, again, it's just to kind of like, there it is, like now you
Yeah.
get a chance to see it. You get to see the differences. If you'd like that one better, so be it. But again, it was just that cut of the movie was just a cut from somebody who was so focused on getting his art out there. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Where, wait a minute, there's other people that were making this movie together. Like Christy she needed her input in this cut. Jeremy needed his input in this cut. I needed my input into this cut. So, but when I was away, I wasn't able to have the voice. But when I came
Hmm.
back, I did. So, and that's where like I said, I took control of the movie, made it what I think is the best version of August Underground's Mortem, and that's the version that is everybody's seen.
Mhm.
And it's again, I mean, you can't that ending of August Underground's Mortem is just
It's
holy
incredible.
shit.
It's incredible. But yeah, I have not thus far got the unearthed Blu-rays, so I'm kind of glad now to hear that the trilogy box set is coming, so I don't have to double dip on myself. Which I am an absolute hoarder of Blu-ray, a collector of Blu-rays. So I'm sure I'll end up doing that at some stage with some films. That's how it goes, you know. We
Yeah, well,
live.
I'm a collector too. So I own every version of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre that you can get, Evil Dead and Frankenstein. So like I know what it's like when you have to double dip. That's why I always try to make our releases special. Either it's a different cover or there's another feature in there, or so you're getting a little something and it's not just the same shit. Because as a fan, I feel I don't want to take advantage of that.
But
But we're working really hard on this box set. There will be some surprises in there and, some cool stuff that people have never seen before. And I'm hoping to do some stuff with Unearthed, like, even if we do like maybe selling off some of my like original pieces from the movie, like every August Underground release, I've always kept the number one, like one out of 100, one out of 1,000 or whatever. It might be time for me to let some of that stuff go.
I've
So
seen you
I
sewing some.
again, I really want to make it interactive with the fans when this box
Yeah,
set comes out. Because again, August Underground being 25 years old is pretty important.
yeah, that's incredible. Just for the benefit of the listener, there is a wall of photos of Boris Karloff from James Whale's Frankenstein behind Fred. So he wears his fan. I mean, you literally have the Boris Karloff
Yeah, these are
Frankenstein.
these are all autographed photos. So
Oh, incredible!
yeah, so Frankenstein's my favorite movie of all time. So there's like that's a Boris Karloff autograph. That's a May Clark autograph. John Bowles. Up
Oh, that's
above it, up
awesome.
here, there's Colin Clive, Donnie Dugan from Son of Frankenstein, the little girl from Ghost of Frankenstein, Basil Gogos. So
Incredible.
I'm a collector, and I have a Texas Chainsaw Massacre dining room that's like fully decked out with fur and chainsaws and meat hooks and
That's
you know.
incredible. Yeah, thank you so much for being on, Fred, and for giving me your time. And it's been a really brilliant conversation. So
Well, thank you for
thank
having
you
me.
so much. And I think that my quote for the episode may be that the August Underground films are all about love. I think that will be. I think that sums it up. You know.
Yeah.
It's like I said when I saw the documentary and saw the clear love that you had for each other, I think that comes true in the film and a commitment on everyone's part involved in your movies, not just those. There's a clear commitment that everyone agreed to go to these places and that's something
Yeah, because nobody got
incredible.
nobody got paid. That's the
I
thing
can't
about the August
imagine.
Underground movies. Nobody got paid. Everybody who is a victim or naked or whatever did it because of the art. And they did it because they believed in me and Toe Tag to be vulnerable and let us, they put their lives in our hands, because I'm sure to them there was something scary behind it, like, oh shit, like I'm in the scene, like what's gonna happen? Like, can they be
Yeah.
really doing this kind of stuff? Sure, I'm sure some of them felt that way. But a lot of it, everybody who's in it, people who don't want to be associated with the movies anymore or whatever. But at the moment in time, they were very loved and very much of the family, and they'll always be part of the family, even though they might not want to be part of the
Show up at
association of the
reunions.
movies.
Fair enough. I mean, it's when you were talking about the distribution or lack of back in the day. It's like Louise Ward, she said that she used to have a friend who would drive down from Canada because it was illegal in
Yeah,
Canada. You were arrested at the border for
yeah.
having copies. It would be drive down from Canada, buy some DVDs from you, and then her friend would drive them back up into Canada. It's wild you know, it's like I when I wrote a review about Necromantic, I said like steps that people used to have to go through to get these, and now I can walk into Tower Records or HMV, not HMV here, but Tower Records, and see like these beautiful box set of Yorg's movies, and it's like it's
Yeah.
awesome, but it's funny how things work out, you know.
Yeah, well, that's again, that's why all the original toe tag stuff to me will always be the most rare. Like the snuff editions that there was only 1,000 of that were autographed by the cast and crew. Like that stuff will never come around again. And people are just like, oh, well, why do I need this if I can get the Blu-ray? But it's because the first pressings are always the most important.
Sure. Yeah.
That's the blood, sweat, and tears right there.
I mean, you talk about being a collector. One of the things I love on your Instagram is your vinyl records of the day. I love seeing that, and I think
Well,
it's
thank
just
you.
so cute and so wholesome. And one thing just to say for listeners is that if you buy the digital copy of the final interview and then you want to buy the physical version, you will have the cost of the digital taken off it, isn't it?
Yep,
So
absolutely.
Fred is committed to being very fair and making sure that people don't pay for stuff twice. So it's really great. So I think you check out the final interview, check out everything, and if you want to shout out anything or give shout out your socials, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook. Fred Vogel. Just look. I don't know the handle, but
Okay,
you'll see my face. So that's yeah, I'm usually the main one. So, but yeah,
excellent.
I hate social media,
Oh
but
fuck
it's
yeah.
something that we gotta I gotta deal with. But
To be honest, I know that there's platforms where if I had the podcast on there, I could get reach, and I'm like, I don't care. I just
yeah,
actually, this isn't my day job. I'm spending money to do this. Um, I don't want to be on X, Twitter, whatever. I'm just
yeah,
like, that's
I'm not on
boring.
Twitter at all.
No, fuck that. So like, and
Yeah,
it's like you could. People say like you need to be on it. And I don't think I do.
no, no.
You know. Thank you so much, Fred. It's been a
Thank
pleasure
you.
and Happy New Year. And thank
Yes,
you
Happy
for
New Year.
everyone for listening. And shout out to Kelly's Taboo Terrors. She's been really awesome. I've been talking to her, and her podcast is incredible as well.
Well, I'm headed for Death Valley once again. Gonna drop some tabs and hang out with my friends. And if the black bus picks us up and Charlie says get in the now, well, I guess my hands will be dripping with their blood. Well, we're driving up the canyon tonight, and the California sky never seems so bright. When we creepy crawl the house and we get a message out, Casa La Bianca drifts with blood.